What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on the New York Knicks, right? And in particular, in particularly the play of Karl Anthony Towns. Now, Karl Anthony Towns has always been known for a guy who kind of like his play has always been inconsistent, right? And the guy Thibs, the coach who coached him Thibs at New York, and also he coached him in Minnesota, was he knew how to motivate this guy Karl Anthony Towns and try and how to get him to play on a more consistent basis. Or maybe like when Karl Anthony Towns did have like lapses and stuff like that, maybe he just kind of like dealt with him and just put like defenders around him and people who would kind of like make up for his downfalls, right? Now, Mike Brown comes into the picture with Karl Anthony Town, and they the expectation is higher. Like Tibbs could not get the New York Knicks basketball team to the championship, so they figured they'd try somebody else different, and they'll bring in Mike Brown, right? And so the expectation for Mike Brown is to be able to get the Knicks over the hump and get them to the championship. And in order to do that, you have to get Karl Anthony Towns to play like all-star level on a consistent basis. And Karl Anthony Towns is just not going to do that. And not only is he not going to do that, in my opinion, it just looked like he has regressed. And so on the Running Back podcast, they also spoke about like was Tibbs, and this was the question, like, is Tibbs the only person that could coach? No, their question is, did the Knicks make a mistake in getting rid of Tibbs? I like Tibbs because Tibbs is a he's a defensive oriented coach, right? And so some people say that he only knew one way to do it, and it was through defense. But and I think Tiz probably made a deal with Karl Anthony Towns. Like I don't care what you shoot on offense as long as you get back and you play defense. Like some coaches will tell you that. Because if you don't play defense and you shooting a whole bunch of crazy shots, then you really hurting the team. But at least if you shoot a crazy shot and you come back and play defense, you got an opportunity to make up for something, your flaws on the offensive end. So he was defense first. But a recent play Mike Brown just criticized Karl Anthony about was Karl Anthony Towns turned the ball over and didn't hustle back on defense after the turnover and allowed the other team to get an easy basket, right? And so that really, and Mike Brown is a defensive coach too, but Mike Brown don't have the history with Karl Anthony Towns that Tibbs do, and so that makes it, he kind of like feeling them out or trying to try different things. Like, what motivates this guy? Like, what can I do to get this guy to play at the level that I know he could play at so we can win? And so that's what Mike Brown is going through right now. But like I said, the discussion is, was it a mistake to get rid of Tibbs? And so I want to play the Running Back podcast and come back and give my input on this.
And the Knicks are where we're starting because things are not great in the state of New York. Here we go. 8 of their last 10 have been losses. The recent home loss to the Suns on Saturday. Jalen Brunson's been out of the lineup last 2 games, did injure his ankle against the Kings, but that really is just the tip of the iceberg. Why don't we take a look at some of their rankings in the Eastern Conference this month so far? Worst record, worst defensive rating, worst true shooting percentage, second worst net rating, third worst assists to show, and third worst pace. Wow, that was a weird one. I don't even know where I'm starting, Boogie, with you, because you're the closest one to me. We've talked so much about them coming out of the East, but are we still feeling that way?
I mean, obviously, with everything that's going on with this team right now, it isn't great signs of them, being the team to come out of the East as of right now. But the biggest thing with the East, as far as this season is consistency. And they've been, up until this point, probably the most consistent team in the East. But, I think a lot of their issues are starting to come, to a head at this point. Obviously, I've been on record saying I'm not a fan of the small guard being the lead guard for a championship team. So obviously that's a glaring issue. I do think they still need another scoring punch. And also just figuring out the style of play as far as how do you want to use Karl Anthony Towns with this team. So, and also just, really using his strengths to help this team improve. So I think it's a few glaring issues when it comes to this team. To sit here and say which one is the most important as of right now, I think, to each his own. I think it's a coach's perspective. It's a fan's perspective. But with all that being said, they have some glaring issues, and they also got to figure out this roster moving forward.
Yeah, that was Boogie, right, saying that they have issues. But the thing is, like, I don't really like small guards either, right? I never thought that like Brunson as a small guard would be able to get New York Knicks over that hump. I didn't think that, right? But that don't make up for the fact that Karl Anthony Towns take lapses, he take plays off, and sometimes he might take a whole game off. So that's not the point. You can always, ain't no excuse for not playing your best or giving your all when you're out there. So I don't, that's something you won't even get to the part where you have a deficiency far as a small guard because this guy's not even playing hard.
Still think they're competitive in the East. I still think they'll be there in the Eastern Conference semis or the Eastern Conference Finals. I do. I think they're that talented enough. They're getting some production from their bench, more so than with Thibs teams. You've seen flashes from Clarkson, Shamet, Kolek. Like they're getting stuff from their bench. It's just not enough. And certain times I watch this team, and Cat just looks so disengaged. They have to figure out a way to get him, I don't want to say motivated, but more aggressive, more dominating. And same thing with.
But see, this with Cat has been, people always say he's not aggressive, he's not motivated. So this has been a problem, a ongoing issue with him. And at some point in time, man, you just gotta, he is what he is. I think he's been in the league over 10 years, around 10 years or so. So here's what he is. Like, maybe it's just time to move on from him altogether.
And I know what it's like. They're playing with Jalen Brunson, who is phenomenal. He's one of the greatest Knicks already of all time. But when you have a guy with that much ISO and that much usage rate, it just kind of bogs down the offense and kind of creates frustration within that team. And again, Jalen Brunson's a great dude. I think people love playing with him, as a guy in the locker room. I just think that when the ball gets sticky like that, it kind of gets a little frustrating for the offense. So, which is crazy too, because their offense early on was so elite. And they just looked so good, 16, 17 games ago in the NBA Cup. But they just got to find a way to be more consistent because they have the talent. And now all of a sudden they have the depth, but still not enough. Like it's a very confusing team so far.
So here's what I find fascinating about this. Because they have not had a stretch like this since 1920. That was under Fizz, shout out Fizz. And then you get rid of Thibs and shout out Thibs. A lot of people didn't like that. Now you got Mike Brown and people love Mike Brown. But here we are. Shout out Mike Brown. These are three people that I actually genuinely like. However, there was a lot of crying and whining and fussing about all of the changes that were being made, whether you were for or against the firing of Thibodeau. I'm not sure, Lou, how we're supposed to feel about this right now with Mike Brown. Is this a coaching thing? Is this just a moment?
Yeah, don't panic. Like, it's a lot of basketball to be played, right? Like, we're not even at the halfway point yet, and we're ready to throw out everything. When it comes to Mike Brown, like there will be an adjustment period, especially if you're trying to change the style of play and the identity of play, and you're bringing in a system that you want to constitute to make y'all play better basketball. We're looking at a basketball team that plays a lot of ISO basketball, and they don't guard at the same clip. You look at all of the defensive ratings and the offensive ratings, like, the guys were talking about Cat, right? They have to find a way. Mike Brown has to find a way to get him more aggressive. Half of his shot attempts usually are three-pointers, deep three-pointers. And this is your five. Now, he's one of the best big shooting men in the league. He's self-proclaimed. I'm the best big that can shoot the basketball. But Nobody can stop Cat when he puts the ball on the floor. Nobody stops him when he puts his back to the basket. Nobody stops him when he's 10 feet from the basket, but he's living and dying from the three-point line. And then you have Jalen Brunson, who's also an aggressive guard that likes to post up, that likes to play ISO basketball. And so outside of those two guys, you don't necessarily have the identity of an ISO basketball team. So if you're not making shots and you don't have the ability to make shots and put pressure on teams on the offensive end, it looks like it's leading to them playing bad defense, straight line drives, allowing teams to get into the paint. And any team that's going to allow a team to get to their paint and kick the ball out for threes or just lay the basketball up, it's going to be hard for them to beat anybody. So collectively, I think they have a lot of things that they need to adjust, that they need to fix. But I don't think you panic right now if you're New York. Look, 8 out of 10 in your last 10 are losses. That's not something that you want to see, but you're also still in third. That's also still something to be motivated by. You're still 1 game out of 2.
Yeah.
You're half game out of.
See, I think like if you can't get Karl Anthony Towns to, especially with him being in the league as long as he has been, somebody like Karl Anthony Towns, I think I would just try to, because really Mike Brown really can't do anything offensively different than what Thibs did last year, right? So they was running their offense through Brunson, and Brunson is their number one. He's their most dynamic offensive threat. So you still have to do that. You can't take the ball out of Brunson's hand. Then who are you going to put it? You going to give it to Josh Hart, or you going to give it to, you're not going. So you still got to do that on offense. Got to run their offense through, because that's what they have. That's the way they set up. But what I would do is I would cut this guy's minutes. What's the guy name? Karl Anthony Towns. If you're not playing hard, give me somebody out there who's going to play defense the way I want them to play defense. And so I will cut his minutes. If he's not playing, he's used to getting like 30 minutes or something, I'll cut him down to like 20-something minutes a game. And I put somebody out there with a lot of energy and a lot of defense, and have Jalen Brunson share the ball with other guys who are scorers. They can score, like other guys can score, and spread that scoring around. So, I would just like slowly but surely phase him out of there. So if he unhappy now, just give him something to be, dissatisfied, real reason, because he is who he is. He's going to play when he want to play. And I would just, okay, I just phase him out, because all you need defense. Their defense is slacking. So I'll be like, I put somebody else in there, because you can't let him dictate what goes on, or else, Mike Brown is going to wind up getting fired too. That's why Thibs is fired, because they wanted Thibs to do something different, but the team, they were built the way that they were built. They couldn't do anything. You had to rely on Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson to be your offensive punch. But I would use him sparingly, and limit his minutes. And so if he didn't want to perform when he was in there, then that's cool. Then I would just, I'll have somebody else in there, because he's not going to go to another team and be their number, not unless he go to like the Wizards or somebody. And so I'll give him something to think about. Competition, I think, is the best motivator. So when people know that they have the job, and they know that you can't do anything to them, then they kind of, they'll be like, I play when I want to play. Like, okay. Yeah. And so that's the difference with this generation. Like, guys back in the days, man, like even your star players just had respect for their coaches. But these guys, if they have leverage, then that means that they will use their leverage to hurt the team. I'm not going to play defense. And you see superstars not playing defense. That's crazy. I will cut his minutes. And because you're going to if you Mike Brown or you Thibs, you're going to get fired anyway. So, why not just make a decision that's best for the team? I'm going to have somebody out there that's going to play defense, And if you can't coach, then I guess, then you may as well just go ahead and sit on the side, collect this paycheck. And, I'm not going to keep on telling this guy, he know that he's not supposed to, like his 3 points is hurting the team. His 3-pointers are hurting the team. he know that when he don't get back on defense, it's hurting the team. So I was like, all right, next man up. I'll just cut his minutes. So with that being said, man, y'all make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.